Hello, my name's Andy Connell and you're watching a screencast on software testing. This is the third screencast in a series of four where we're going to be focusing on software support for testing procedures. So if we look at what a software testing tool is, it's merely a piece of software which helps us establish that the system under investigation is indeed fit for purpose. There are a whole range of different tools, and these different tools interact with each other. Whether the tool is appropriate or not really depends on the type of system which we're looking at. High-risk systems, e-commerce systems, safety-critical systems, large data systems, these are the kind of things which would benefit perhaps from the use of a tool. So I said there are many different types of tool. Perhaps the high-level classification we could think of as test management tools. Test management tools would typically create, store and edit test scripts. But these in turn might be supported by a test requirement tool. These tools would seek to relate the system requirements to the functions which have been created and in turn to the functions which need to be tested. So then we need to actually test the functions, so we have various test execution tools. And as test execution proceeds, so problems and issues arise, and so the incident management tools. Finally, the fifth level of high-level tool we might want to think about is configuration management. As bugs are fixed, so new versions of the program are produced, and so there is a need for version control, which is what configuration management is all about. As I said, there are a lot of tools, and I don't want to, it's not the job of this screencast to go into each of these tools in detail, but it might be useful to classify some of the different types of tools with the fundamental test process, the steps which one goes through when creating a testing regime. We looked at these in screencast number 1. It's basically you plan it, you analyze it, you design it, you run it, you look at the results, and you close it down. So if we think about test planning to start with, we might think about tools such as the test management tool itself, and perhaps configuration management, trying to keep control of the different versions. With regards to test analysis and design, we're specifying the condition to be tested, we're designing the types of tests which are appropriate, we're referring to models to try and look at areas of the system which are critical. And then of course we have to run the test itself, various types of tool available there. Probably the most important would be test execution tools. And we have to look at the types of results that we're getting, and there's quite a range of tools here. Two tools which I would like to focus on here are, first off, the comparator tool. Comparator tool is used to compare the contents of two files, perhaps a file originally created in an old version and a file created in a new version, to make sure that there are no dissimilarities. And the incident management tool, which, as we've seen before, is a tool used to log problems and issues as they arise during the development, so they can perhaps be subject to retesting and regression testing to test the knock-on effect of a change made to the software. It's a very useful tool as well. Can't overstate the importance of the interactions between tools. It might often be found the case that the test management tool might well, as a proprietary package, incorporate elements of the requirements tools or the configuration management tools, or perhaps the incident tool. The requirements tool, very closely related to test management, very closely related to coverage management. Review tools, very closely related to configuration management. So always be aware of the fact that the different tools have very, very close interactions with each other. Final aspect I'd like to look at with regards to tools is something called the test harness. The idea of the test harness is that when you're in the early stages of testing, perhaps unit testing or integration testing, it's important that you can simulate the environment. So you can simulate the inputs into a single program or perhaps a small group of programs being subject to integration test, and look at and capture the outputs from that individual program or small group of programs. The test harness does this. It creates a simulation of the IOs, sometimes called the unit test framework, normally produced in-house. As I said in slide 1, testing tools are typically a combination of proprietary tools purchased third-party and perhaps in-house build, and a test harness is a good example of an in-house build tool. Very, very closely related to the test execution tool. So thinking about now the different steps involved when implementing a testing tool into an organization. First, you've got to consider how the organization is currently set up with testing. What are they doing at the moment? You've got to think about not just the tool which you're looking to acquire, but perhaps alternatives to purchasing a tool, such as perhaps outsourcing the testing process, or perhaps providing more training to personnel inside the project. You want to look at what the tool is required to do. Obviously a tool must have a very clear objective, and then just like in perhaps package selection, you'd evaluate different versions of a tool or different commercial offerings of a tool to see which one suits you best, and when you've made that selection, perhaps you might want to then run a pilot project. Now finally, it is important to remember that whilst tools are great, they give you consistency, they give you a degree of independence, they're great at high volume, and they're great at big number crunching operations like regression testing, there are a number of downsides to using a tool. Implementing tools within an organization can be a very time consuming, resource hungry operation. It's not going to be quick and it's not going to be cheap. And it's always important to emphasize that tools are not a complete solution. The danger in all this, when we start talking about tools, is that in the minds perhaps of non-technical personnel inside the organization, by acquiring a tool might create an unreasonable expectation of what can be achieved with that tool. So when introducing tools, software testing tools, into an organization, it's very, very important to manage the expectations of the people perhaps who are paying for it. This concludes screencast number 3, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.